Hi, magical friends. Just a quick little message from me. There is so much going on in the world right now, and I'm particularly mindful of what's been happening in Palestine. And so, before we jump into today's episode, I just wanted to let you know that over the last several months, I've been raising funds for various nonprofits that are helping the residents of Gaza and sadly now Rafah. And my latest round of fundraising is once again for the Palestine Children's Relief Fund. So please do check that out over on my personal Instagram page, which is at Phantasmaphile. And that's spelled with PHs, or you can just look up my name. And please donate if you are able to. And thank you so much to those who have given already. And if you're interested in learning more about the Palestine Children's Relief Fund, you can check out their phenomenal and essential work over at pcrf.net. Thank you so much. This season of The Witch Wave is brought to you in part by Black Phoenix Alchemy Lab. Black Phoenix Alchemy Lab is a fragrance house specializing in body and household blends with a dark, romantic, gothic tone. Over the years, they've collaborated with some of my very favorite creative visionaries, including Neil Gaiman, Jim Jarmusch, the Jim Henson Company, and most recently, Junji Ito. They continually return to inspirations drawn from witchcraft, paganism, and mythology, and they also have a sister store called Twilight Alchemy Lab, which creates oils blended and consecrated specifically for ritual use. The lab recently released their annual Halloween perfume collection, a limited edition series which includes scents inspired by folklore accounts of lycanthropy. Customer reviews of their products can be found at the fan-run bpal.org web forum, and you can check out all of their perfumes and other enchanting concoctions over at blackphoenixalchemylab.com.
The world is filled with bewitching people, and you might be one too. Welcome to the podcast where art is magic is real, and reality is stranger than dreams. I'm Pam Grossman, and this is The Witch Wave.
Hello, and welcome to The Witch Wave. Ooh, I have got an extra special, extra sparkly episode for you today. I mean, all the episodes are special, but this one is particularly meaningful for me because it features a new friend of mine who feels immediately like a very dear old friend. By which I mean it feels to me as if we've known each other far longer and far better than we actually do. Don't you just love when that happens? Pati Dubroff is a makeup artist to the stars. And I think of the stars because she is a truly stellar human being. And as you'll hear, she's also a witch. Although that's a word that I would categorize as new for her to use publicly, but I'm guessing ancient for her privately, because she has such a deep understanding of the archetype of the witch and the practice of magic making that I wouldn't be surprised extends back many lifetimes. Though I'm certainly blessed that I'm getting to know her as a witch and all-around creative soul and friend in this lifetime. In our conversation, we talk a lot about beauty, glamour, self-image, and self-empowerment. And a phrase that we keep coming back to is the phrase glamour magic. Now, magic nerds will know that in the context of witchcraft, glamour magic is something that is sometimes considered a magic of illusion or even deception or trickery. You might be familiar with the phrase fairy glamour or putting a glamour on someone because a glamour was believed to be a spell that was cast, often by fairies, to make something appear different than it actually is. And this was sometimes considered mischievous, right? But when Patty and I are talking about glamour magic, our intention with that phrase is to actually hearken further back to the original etymology of the word glamour. Because as I often like to remind people, the words glamour, grammar, and grimoire are all related to each other. And all of these words are rooted back to concepts of learning, of secret wisdom, of spells and incantations. They are all related to the magic of language. And I think of glamour as its own magical language that can entrance and enchant, conceal and reveal, transform perception, and transcend the mundane. Patty and I talk all about all of this because we share an interest in honoring and cultivating beauty on faces and in the spaces that we occupy and in the world around us. And glamour magic helps us amplify the energies we want to increase and tone down the energies we want to decrease. It's a means of expressing ourselves and our spirits and amplifying the inner energies that we want to project outward. Now, of course, it must be said that the beauty industry and media in general also casts a dark shadow in that it often makes us feel that we are naturally inadequate, less than, or far too much. And Patty and I delve into all of that too. And that's one of the reasons I'm so attracted to her outlook and respect her and her work so much, because she's incredibly mindful about her approach to the art of makeup as being an act of illumination rather than diminishment. I was fortunate enough to have a session with Patty a few weeks back, and I was so relieved and elated to discover that working with her actually made me feel so much more supported and seen and safe than I expected. And it honestly helped me unlock more of my radiance. And not just because of the lotions and potions that she used, though of course those helped, but because of how she treated me and how she reminded me of my own luminosity, which has nothing to do with my features and everything to do with my heart, my mind, and my magic. I'm so thrilled to share our cosmic cosmetological conversation with you here. But before we get to that, first, let's check and see what's come through on the Witch Wire.
Who is it?
Witches.
Liddy writes, "Hi, Pam. Thank you for all of your delightfully witchy work. It's much needed in this world. Recently, I have had multiple dreams in which I am in the presence of people I know to be dead. Some have been musicians or artists whose work I admire, but my grandfather, who passed last July, has also appeared. Additionally, my home was recently visited by a murder of 50 or so crows. It seems the other side of the veil is trying to reach me, but I don't know what it's trying to say or how I can more clearly receive its message. How can I gain a better understanding of what these things may mean? For what it's worth, I've always been drawn to Persephone and even had the honor of portraying her on stage. And recent tarot spreads have indicated a time of transformation and inner peace. Thanks for your guidance and wisdom. Blessed be. Hi, Liddy. Well, if you listen to my conversation with Pati, you will understand the synchronicity behind why I chose to answer your question during this specific episode. But let me start by saying that in many cultures, as you know, receiving signs like the ones you described was and is not only considered sacred, but there have often been people designated in their specific society to make sense of such signs. And I'm reminded of the practice of what's called augury, Augury. Today, the word augury is often used to mean the interpretation of signs and omens. But in ancient Greece and ancient Rome, augury was usually linked to the interpretation of weather and specifically to the behavior of birds. The appearance of birds, the breeds and flight patterns and number of birds that appeared, and so on, were all interpreted by these augurs. And the role of an augur was filled by someone who was highly skilled at interpreting these avian omens. So right now, your role, and perhaps mine now by extension, is to be an augur, to interpret these signs that are appearing in your dream life and your waking life, and to see what they are telling you. And the interpretation is going to vary from person to person, of course, but based on what you've shared with me, it's not only your grandfather who has a message for you, but it feels like groups of people, whether that's your creative heroes who have passed or literal ancestors. And the crows in particular made my eyes and ears perk up because crows are symbols of transformation, intuition, and magic. They are sometimes considered psychopomps. In other words, beings or deities that help usher souls back and forth from the underworld or across the veil. They're often considered quite wise, and they are said to appear when some change is afoot. Some people say they symbolize death, but I actually think that's very reductive. It doesn't mean that someone you know is about to die or that you are, so don't worry. But crows are associated with death in the same way that the death card in tarot doesn't often mean an actual literal death, but means transformation and often the ending of one phase and the beginning of a new one. And sometimes that means you need to let something go in order to step into this new phase of personal evolution. So absolutely, if you are feeling drawn to doing ancestor work, that's never a bad idea in my book, and setting up an ancestor altar or doing some kind of research into your history, if not of specific people in your lineage, then at least of the foods and music and folk magic and so on of your capital P people, can be extremely fruitful. And I would also like for you to consider what kind of change you are feeling called to make in your life right now. What are you called to let go of? What are you called to welcome in or walk toward, even if, especially if you're feeling a little apprehensive about it? Because growth is never 100% comfortable. It just isn't. And my attempt at augury thinks that maybe the beings in your dreams and your giant flock of crows may also be telling you that a big transformation is starting to take place in your life and that you are very supported in that change. You're supported by your ancestors. You're supported by your spiritual heroes. You're supported by Persephone or what other deities you feel a connection to. And you are supported by the natural and supernatural world to become exactly who you are meant to become in this lifetime. So that's just me going out on a limb or going out on a wing, if you will, to do some augury about all of this. But what does your intuition tell you this all means? Trust that, whatever it is, trust that message, and don't be afraid to follow the path of change. That's where all the good stuff is. Let me know if this resonates, and if you see any more crows, tell them I say hi. Now, on to my guest. Pati Dubroff is an iconic, world-renowned makeup artist. She has worked with such glamazons as Margot Robbie, Kirsten Dunst, Elizabeth Olsen, Laura Dern, Christy Turlington, Priyanka Chopra, and Emma Watson, to name but a few. She's also collaborated with such photographic phenoms as Annie Leibovitz, Peter Lindbergh, and Tom Monroe, and her artistry has been featured on countless covers, red carpets, photo shoots, and brand ambassadorships. And she is currently an ambassador for Chanel Beauty. Pati has amassed hundreds of thousands of followers on social media thanks to her makeup tutorial videos, which show that glamour can be accessed and expressed by anyone at any age. Pati is also a lifelong spiritual seeker and has been mindfully integrating her bewitching craft into her professional life. She honors the sacredness of beauty in all facets of her life, and she has developed her own unique practice of glamour magic. Pati works bi-coastally here in the States and often accompanies clients globally. She also teaches makeup masterclasses, most recently doing so in Mumbai. Pati joined me from her magical dome in LA via Zoom. Pati Dubroff, welcome to the Witch Wave.
Thank you so much. I am so excited for this.
Oh,
so excited for so many reasons.
Yay, yay. You and we're just kindred spirits. I'm going to go just claim it. I'm saying it. I'm revealing it to the world. You are someone who...
Oh, I love that. That means so much to me. Pam Grossman. Oh my God. Okay.
Well, you and we've been kind of like orbiting around each other for a little while, but then recently our stars super aligned, and we're going to get into all of that. But Pati, I'm trying to even remember how you and I first got in touch with each other. And I think you reached out to me initially, if I'm remembering correctly. Can you jog my memory for me?
Well, yes, I remember very clearly. During pandemic times, I had the time to dig in and start to learn more about my spirituality and what that meant. And so I started exploring podcasts. And the absolute first one that I found was The Witch Wave. I think I must have listened to maybe 80% of all of the sessions you had out from 2017.
Whoa.
At that point. And I reached out to you on DM on Instagram because I was looking for some way to connect. And I'm like, hey, do you do tarot readings? And you said, no, I actually don't. But you gave me an incredible recommendation of Liza, Miss Crow Mother,
yes,
who is someone who I still work with and I adore. And that was our first connection. And then I would message you infrequently. And then the first ceremony I ever attended was with you in Brooklyn It was your first in-person ceremony coming back after the pandemic.
Oh,
And
the
I was there.
Samhain ceremony. Yes, yes,
It was
yes, yes,
Samhain,
yes.
exactly. And I was so nervous.
Oh, Patty. Well, I hope it was a tender enough experience that you didn't get scared off of witches ever since.
Not
Clearly
at
not.
all. Not at all.
Good, good. And then I reached out to you because, so full disclosure, and I'm just going to get like very revelatory and vulnerable on this episode. I have a feeling. Listeners know that I'm in my 40s. I'm very honest and open about my age, 43. And lately, especially during the pandemic, because I turned 40 during the pandemic, and coming out of the pandemic, like a lot of us, I think I've been still trying to get my sparkle fully back in all the ways, internally, externally. And I just kind of came to this realization on a superficial level. I was like, look, my skin is changing. I'm still wearing pretty much the same makeup that I've worn since I was in my 20s. And it's not quite working for me or making me feel as glamorous as it used to. And I kind of didn't know what to do about it. I found it really overwhelming because I'm someone, I don't fuck with my products. I don't change them a lot. It's like I stick to one thing and it works for me. I mean, I change my lipsticks all the time, as people know, but in terms of just my daily skincare. And I reached out to you and I said, hey, would you be open to some kind of a barter? Because you had reached out to me interested in a session, and listeners know I do one-on-one counseling sessions. Maybe we could do a barter. And you were so generous and you were like, of course. And at first I thought, okay, sometimes I do photo shoots or I'm on camera and maybe I'll do something like that with you. And then I realized, I could really use just like guidance on what the fuck to do with my 43-year-old face now. And you're based in LA, but you come to New York all the time for your amazing clients, and stars aligned. And I had this session with you a few weeks ago. Not only was it very practical in that you helped me switch up some of my routine, but I found it to be so magical and spiritually nourishing. And we'll get into that, but I just first of all want to thank you publicly, Patty, because ever since then, I've really felt a little bit more sparkly and a little more glamorous. And yes, part of it is the skin creams and whatever, but a lot of it was just being with you and kind of readjusting my lens. So I just want to say a huge thank you to you, Patty.
Thank you so much. That means so much to me. And I loved spending those hours with you and getting to know you in the flesh. And I love nothing more than helping someone step into their beauty in a deeper, more meaningful way. It's about decluttering a makeup bag, understanding the specifics of where to apply and where not to apply products, but it's also really about perspective and how they see themselves and how they relate to themselves and how they speak to themselves and how they really connect with themselves.
Yes.
I love that so much. It's one of my favorite things to do is to just help any person really kind of step into that deeper connection.
Yes. Well, let me tell our listeners what happened, and then we'll zoom out and talk all about you. But I just really want to do it to give people a sense of like what my experience was like and why I think you are so gifted and magical. Because look, by now, listeners will have heard a whole fancy intro about you where I'll tell them how magnificent you are and all your celebrity clientele, woo, woo, woo. But because of that, I was also a little bit intimidated to even work with you because I was like, oh my goodness, this woman is a makeup artist to the stars. You know, she's used to working with, I mean, it's very public. You work with Margot Robbie and Christy Turlington and Kirsten Dunst. Let me also say, I'm not always mean to myself. Sometimes I'm really loving to myself. I don't have terrible self-esteem. But in my insecure moments, I can be really terrible to myself. And I had this moment of like, oh, she's so used to working with these like quote unquote perfect looking ladies. Like, what's she going to do with this? You know what I mean? And you immediately made me feel welcome and beautiful, even how I was showing up, feeling a little bit insecure and nervous. And that was just your energy right off the bat. And secondly, I want to say, anyone who's listening to this, Pati and I are not here to judge you in your own beauty routine or choices. I'm just going to speak personally that I thus far have chosen not to do like Botox and fillers and all of that kind of stuff. More power to you if you want to do that. And maybe I'll change my mind. I reserve the right to change my mind. But thus far, it hasn't felt aligned with me. And I was nervous that you were going to be like, oh, have you thought about tightening this and injecting that? And immediately you were like, not about that life either. So I'm talking too much, Pati, because I'm so excited about you. But let's pause there. When someone like me meets you at first, what is your intention and what is your attitude towards natural beauty and supernatural beauty?
Supernatural beauty. Well, first of all, I just want to say that, yes, I do work with very extraordinarily beautiful and talented women who are publicly known. But the thing is, they're just women. They're just people. They have their own bags of insecurities. And it can actually be even more frustrating and challenging for them because being just a normal human, but with the pressure of this kind of global scrutiny, really is a heavy weight to bear.
I was going to say a head fuck, but you were much more delicate about it. A heavy weight to bear. Yeah.
It's a mind fuck. It's a head fuck. It can be a really dark place if they don't gain like a grounded perspective on it. So I feel really fortunate that I can be in the place of helping prepare them to literally face the glory and scrutiny of the world. And it's putting them in a space where they feel grounded, safe, and most empowered. I love the word empowerment around beauty. And I think that's something that everyone, if they're able to step into their own sense of empowerment, then the choices that they make with their beauty routine feels very aligned. But if they're not in that place of empowerment and the insecurities take over, then maybe the choices aren't so aligned. In terms of natural versus other means of enhancing beauty, I am very much not about injectables or surgeries. It's just not my trip. And yes, I know I have big 11s between my eyebrows and sometimes I look real mean, but I don't want to go down the route of putting things into my body that I maybe wouldn't choose to ingest, energetically or physically. That's just me. And then in terms of sharing beauty with quote unquote civilian or normal person, I see beauty in everyone. And it's not about like the kind of physical planes of perfection, because I must say, I've met some of the quote unquote most beautiful women in the world, or considered to be the most beautiful women in the world. And I personally didn't see beauty because of maybe an energetic block, that didn't feel beautiful to me. So it's not about physicality. It's about kind of an alignment. And I love meeting aligned women who are strong and powerful and connected to their like more spiritual selves, because that's where beauty comes from. It's a spiritual glow.
Yes.
And you are glowing, my friend.
Oh, thanks, Pati. Well, I'm definitely glowing from the inside talking to you, but also some of the makeup that you gave me and that you recommended for me.
Yeah.
You touched on this briefly, but some of what you had me do was almost like a makeup audit. You had me bring all my makeup with me. We went through all of my sad, crusty, broken, weird makeup that was like at the bottom of my crusty old bag. And I mean, like Marie Kondo comes to mind in terms of what she does energetically with spaces, but it almost felt like that kind of vibe where you were like, literally, if you haven't used a product or if it just makes you feel like icky when you look at the tube, it's time to let it go. And it was so freeing, even that exercise. Like I found that to be really uplifting. And you also encouraged me to like buy a new makeup bag. And these are the things that they seem so simple and obvious, but I just didn't think to do that for myself. And it has made such a difference too. Just like the little interactions every day of like, now I have this amazing iridescent bag that I use and it just kind of lifts my spirits, that alone. So can you talk a little bit about the tools too?
I mean, I think it's really important. Like cleanses are important. Cleansing your body is important. Cleansing your spaces are important. Keeping things clean really gives you a sense of peace and clarity, right? And purging can be so important. And I find that, at least personally, when I'm surrounded by clutter, I'm confused. It feels like the path is a little less clear, right? So even with the things that I have in my makeup bag, I want it to be not only clean and simplified so that it makes my process more simplified, but also beautiful and inspiring. Because if I feel uplifted by seeing my products in my bag or laid out on my table, that's starting that feeling of beauty that I'm going to then kind of be imbibing, and I'm utilizing that to then kind of take it to the next step.
Yes.
So I learned a lot about the importance of keeping spaces clean and sacred. And that translates to every space and every place and ourselves and even our little makeup bag. And sometimes, the attachments can be strong to things of the past, right? But they're not always of our highest good.
You had to wrestle my white gothy powder out of my hands. I grew up in the 90s. And if you're a little ghost girl like I am, it's like the matte white powder, that's where it's at. So we do have these attachments, to your point. And a lot of it is about how we see ourselves, our past, what we're clinging on to. And so it might seem superficial, but actually it's much deeper than that, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually just heard something really interesting recently. I was doing a program about thought forms, from the Annie Besant Leadbeater kind of thought forms. The professor was talking about how we kind of get attached to our golden years and the years that we were it could have been high school or college or in our 20s when we were hot. And we think that was our golden years. And the more attachment that we have to that kind of thought of that was our best, then it doesn't enable us to be our best in every moment and moving forward. So I loved that so much. It made so much sense. I think that really applies to beauty because especially as we age, when we look in the mirror and we see our face has changed and is not the face that we had in our younger days when maybe we felt like we looked better, then it's holding us back from accepting who we are now and seeing the beauty of now. I struggle with it too. Sometimes I look in that mirror and I'm like, whoa, lines look deep, puffiness is big, blah, blah, blah. And I have to really stop myself in that moment from going down a rabbit hole of really it's self-hate ultimately. And instead I put a pause on it and I've started to think about, okay, well, what did you do last night? What did you do yesterday? What have you been doing or not doing that's making you look like this that doesn't feel aligned? So generally that kind of translates to, oh, you didn't sleep well last night. Yep. Oh, you've been kind of indulging in foods that maybe aren't going to support your entire system. So there's the puffiness or the redness, or you've been, indulging in extracurriculars too much or whatever. And then it's a way of going, okay, now I can course correct if I so choose.
Yep. So I want to talk a little bit more broadly because I have this imaginary listener in my mind right now who's like, okay, they're talking about makeup. This is a witch podcast. What the fuck is happening here? Or maybe that's just my own inner demon who's projecting this, right? But can we talk about beauty and why there is sacredness and spirituality to it? Because I think I still struggle with maybe if I was a really enlightened person, I wouldn't even care what I looked like. Or if I was truly enlightened, I wouldn't wear makeup. That's so fake. It's artificial, blah, blah, blah. All those little voices I have in my head. But on the other hand, I just know that glamour magic really does make me feel good. And when I'm working with it in a playful, positive way, it feels enhancing. It feels empowering. It doesn't feel like self-hatred. And yet the beauty industry and media in general and social media is so full of things that make us hate ourselves and want to buy things to quote unquote fix ourselves, right? And so, how do you reconcile being in the beauty industry and being a very spiritual person? How can we come into harmony with these things that feel on the surface as if they're in conflict?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, I just want to say that this is my coming out of the broom closet party.
Yay!
And I'm so excited. And it has really just kind of recently clicked. I mean, spirituality has been an integral part of my life for my whole life, but, especially since my 20s. And also working and being obsessed with makeup and beauty has also been in my life equally as long. And I used to see them as two different tracks. I really used to straddle those worlds. I'd be in my spiritual world, and then I would shift gears and be in fashion or Hollywood or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then as I've come more in touch with the true essence of myself, I've learned that those two paths are one and the same, and they've become more integrated internally, and then also how I approach it with work. So yes, glamour magic is incredible. And just think about Hollywood. It's all glamour magic. Just think about movie stars. They're doing glamour magic. It's all glamour.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you personalize this, it kind of gives you a place where you're preparing for, oh my God, a crow just came on my deck in a way that it's never done before.
It knows. It's like,
oh my God.
Patty's
Oh
out
my
of the
God.
broom closet.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, my.
Gorgeous.
What was I saying? Yes, when we reel in our ability to control what we want to project onto others, and we can do that through the incredible products available to us through the beauty world, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yes, it's very true that the beauty industry wants to make us feel as though we need them in a way because we're not enough.
Right. That we're broken, we're less
That we're
than.
broken, we need fixing, we
Yep.
need to be concealed or spackled or all these words. And it's really one of the things that had given me a distaste to the beauty industry, even though I'm very much involved in the beauty industry. And I even used to have guilt around what I do and how it would make others feel less than, because I know what I'm doing is glamour magic, right? And I'm making these humans look like movie stars. And honestly, to make that human look like the movie star, it's a whole team.
Yeah.
There is such a process. They don't wake up like that. And there's so much glitter and sparkle added to project that image onto the world. And I know that when people don't realize that, they think, oh God, I look like this and look at her and look at her and I don't have that. And it's like, no. We all could have that if we, had an incredible team around us,
right,
or if we change the perspective and use the tools in a way that makes us also as bright and shiny.
Yes.
I don't know how else to say it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
On that note, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. The Witch Wave is sponsored by BetterHelp. So, true story. When I was very little, I had a lot of trouble expressing my feelings. And I would just sort of bottle them up, especially if I had a rough day in elementary school. And the only way that my parents were able to get me to tell them what was on my mind and how I was feeling was to have my dolls ask me. They'd kind of talk to me through my doll and ask me how my day was, and I would open up and tell the doll everything. Now, lucky for them, and lucky for me, and for everyone else in my life, I eventually learned how to express my feelings directly and not through a doll, and therapy has been a huge part of that learning process. Because a good therapist provides a safe place for you to get things off your chest, to vent, to express your emotions, and to learn to let your feelings out in healthy ways so that you don't keep them bottled up or spew them all over the people you care about in unhealthy or inappropriate ways. I sometimes have big feelings and stresses and worries that I need to release because if I keep them bottled up, it starts to affect me and the people in my life in really negative ways. I'm so grateful that I have access to great therapy where I can get this stuff off my chest and feel better. And I think everyone can benefit from therapy because everybody has stuff to get off their chest. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/witchwave today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, spelled HELP.com/witchwave. This episode of The Witch Wave is brought to you by Mithras Candle. Witches know candles are more than just mood lighting or decor. They are powerful tools of wisdom and magic. Candles held sacred significance for our ancestors, embodying hope, renewal, and comfort during the darkest hours. Candle makers, or chandlers, were often spiritual folk, priestesses, monks, druids, and witches, those who knew the significance of these ancient lights. In these modern times, my pagan friends at Mithras Candle uphold this candle-making tradition with reverence. Made by hand, each Mithras candle is a testament to purity and craftsmanship using the most sacred of materials, beeswax. Picture the gentle flicker of beeswax candles carrying the natural aroma of honey and floral notes. And while their Byzantine hand-dripped pillars steal the show, Mithras offers a variety of shapes and colors, including seasonal delights like the soon-to-be-announced green candles for May. Ready to illuminate your space with arcane luxury? Visit mithrascandle.com today and use offer code WITCH24 to enlighten your world with 24% off your first order. That's M as in magic, ITHRAS, candle.com, and use WITCH24 for 24% off your first order. Would you like even more Witch Wave? Do you wish that you could hear from me and my other magical guests on a weekly basis? And what about doing monthly rituals with yours truly? Then come join me over on Patreon, where you'll get bi-weekly bonus Witch Wave Plus episodes, ad-free Witch Wave episodes, and detailed show notes for all. I also lead a monthly online magical workshop, which you can attend live or watch the recording of at your convenience. Rewards for some tiers also include magical merch and contests where you can win Witchly prizes each month, as well as early heads up about my other workshops before they sell out. And you can even sign up for the opportunity to work with me one-on-one. And all backers get access to our exclusive digital coven where you can connect to a community of other wonderful Witch Wave witches around the world. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to patreon.com/witchwave now and sign up. It's a magnificent way to get more magic in your life and to support the show. Thanks so much. Welcome back to The Witch Wave. Today I'm speaking with Pati Dubroff. So, Pati, let's talk about your own journey to get to this point. I mean, I don't want to make you feel awkward, but you're a fucking star in your own right. You are one of the top makeup artists in the whole fucking world. That's incredible magic in itself, just in terms of all the things that you've gone through to manifest this in your own career. And just in our brief time getting to know each other and falling in love with you, it's clear that you've been able to maintain a really good center to yourself, which I imagine could get lost pretty easily, again, in the beauty industry and with the amount of success that you've had. So, why don't we start kind of at the beginning? Like, what interested you in the makeup industry in the first place?
Mm. I remember very distinctly being around 10 years old and sitting in front of my mother's makeup table. And I would play, she let me play with the things she had. And she wasn't like a super glamorous woman, but she had some things, nice things, drugstore things, maybe a department store things. And she let me play there. And I loved the packages and the items and the colors and the textures. And then what they did, to help someone look more, again, bright, sparkly, colorful, whatever. And I would use that makeup and she'd let me put makeup on her, my friends. And I distinctly remember thinking, I want to do this when I grow up. I didn't know what this was because back then, we're talking like the 70s, it wasn't a known career to be a makeup artist. I think now you could ask a 5-year-old and they know what a makeup artist is.
Sure.
Social media and such. But back then, I didn't know what that would be as a grown-up, but I knew I loved those things. So then all through school and high school, I was the girl who was always like helping everyone get ready for the school plays and the parties and realizing that that was where the real fun happened.
Yes.
The fun was in those wonderful little kind of rooms of preparation. And that's where the magic happened. And then I moved to New York City straight out of high school. And I got my first job selling makeup at Bergdorf Goodman, which is a beautiful department store.
Sure.
And I kind of went straight to the chicest one I could find. And honestly, I lied my way into my first job saying that I had experience, but it was really like about fake it till you make it. I didn't have the ability or opportunity to go to any kind of a school or college or anything. So I just like went straight into work. And I worked at the department store at Bergdorf's. And then I started doing what's called testing, which is putting your portfolio together and meeting other creatives in this industry, trying to understand what it took to go beyond the department store. I worked at MTV in the studios.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, this is the late 80s. And like Will Smith was a VJ then, and we reconnected years later on a press tour. And he's like, I know you. I was like, yeah, I know why you know me. I used to powder your face in the MTV studios.
Intimate.
And then I started assisting. And assisting was an incredible opportunity to learn and grow and understand what kind of industry or which way in the industry I would like to pursue. And I assisted many great artists, but especially and longest with Francois Nars.
Oh, wow.
He was a wonderful teacher. And this was the 90s, and this was the era of the supermodel.
Yes.
Francois was like the person who did all of the most important runway shows. And I was his first assistant. And so I traveled with him to Milan and Paris multiple times a year. And we did all the, incredible fashion shows in the 90s, again, supermodel times. And I was really lucky that like I found some of those girls who were my peers. They were very famous, in those circles, but that I found some of those girls who had something deeper in common with me, which was a spiritual leaning and an interest in yoga and meditation. And even though I was could have gone off the rails really wildly in those circles.
Yes.
I was able to stay on the rails because of having the right people around me.
Let me pause you for a second, though, Patti. Yes, you have the right people around you, but you also have started to allude to this spiritual practice. Like, I understand it's yoga and things, but can you just pause and take us a little deeper into like your spiritual headspace at this point? Because that has to be really centering, I would imagine, in this whirlwind of fashion and beauty too.
Yeah, thankfully, that was my rock and really what kept me from going off the rails, as I said before. As a young person, I was always looking, searching. My parents weren't very spiritual at all.
Did you have any religious upbringing?
My mother was like Protestant by her family and my father was Jewish by his family, but they didn't practice anything at all.
Okay.
They were super young. Again, this is the 70s and they were,
And this is the East Coast?
East Coast, yeah. partying was more of their practice, let's say.
Okay.
You know?
Mhm.
So I would always look for neighbors who could take me to their church and their environment, their church
Wow.
environment. So I would go to church with neighbors. And then my father did get involved in some born again Christian things. And I would go to these born again Christian camps. And it wasn't exactly my thing, but I loved community. I loved the community. And I loved that the community was about, something higher.
Hmm.
And then in my very early 20s, I found my first teacher and I went and lived in an ashram for years and years. So in my early 20s, I lived upstate New York in an ashram and I spent a little time in India. And that was literally the preparation for me to then go back out into exploring this fashion world. And fashion was really my focus.
This is so fascinating. So, just to dive a little deeper on that, you're going to, I'm assuming, like recharge your batteries, get some
Mhm.
anchoring when you're at these spaces, but then you're going in and out of an
Yeah,
ashram space and then a fashion show space. Like, is that
absolutely.
how the wave is crashing?
Exactly. And that's why I was saying before, I used to see them as two separate kind of parallels and me in the center, where it was the spiritual path on the one side and the professional path on the other, which involved fashion and then Hollywood, and me somewhere in the middle. And I would flip flop between the two. Thank God for the one keeping me centered on the other. And that spiritual path, it really was the foundation for showing me that the importance of honoring beauty in all and the self being present in all, seeing the beauty of others and the God in all
Mm-hmm.
and in others, and kind of approaching people from that place. And those teachings are some of the most important foundational practices for me now, forever. Thank God.
Yes. And it's so
Yeah.
true when you go to these sacred spaces. And I don't care
Mhm.
what practice we're talking. I don't care if we're talking about an ashram, a church, a stone circle in a forest, like whatever
Mhm.
it is. These are beautiful spaces. They're spaces that are usually very well taken care of, to your point about like cleanliness. Yes, the literal material cleanliness, but also spiritual cleanliness. And so I can see how you would get those messages and then be like, how can I take a sacred temple and keep it clean and beautiful and then transfer that to like the temple of a person, a body, a face, a being, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I really learned about the importance of honoring ourselves as a temple and treating our bodies as a temple. How we present ourselves to others is also a form of worship. Because going back to what we were talking about earlier, putting makeup on ourselves could seem like a very superficial act, right?
Mhm.
But if you flip it a little bit, you could treat it as an offering to others, what you want to show others. Because let's say you walk into a room and you haven't done anything to yourself because you can't be bothered, right?
Mhm.
And other people might be concerned, like, hey, are you feeling okay? Or it might make others feel like, oh, I hope she's okay. But if you walk into that room and you have taken the time to uplift yourself and, spend a little time in kind of how you're appearing to those others, then it puts them at ease. It makes them feel uplifted and it kind of sets the bar, really.
Mm.
So it can be an act of self worship. It is also an act of offering to others
Mm.
how you present yourself. And you can use makeup as a beautiful tool, clothing as a tool for that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, so at this point, you've kind of bifurcated these two parts of yourself. You're slowly kind of integrating them, but then cutting ahead a little bit. Is there a moment when you start to realize, wait a second, what I'm doing is a form of magic? Or did you have a kind of awakening, or has it just been more of like a gradual process?
Definitely gradual, and definitely it's been built upon because I, have seen the power of what presenting oneself in a certain way can do for others or for the broader audience. But I think that it's really come much more recently as I've come more in touch with no other way to say it, my witchy ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like I understand that this is all one and the same. It really has just clicked that there is so much power of intention and manifestation, and all the simple acts that we do daily are tools to help us enhance that power.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit, if you don't mind, Patty, about your own relationship with your own beauty and how that might have evolved or still be evolving as you are aging, as we all are?
Yeah. It can be challenging. Again, I'm around the most beautiful women in the world, and then I'm just me.
And you're such a beauty, Patty, but I hear you. I hear you. We can't all be
Yeah.
Christy Turlington, and that's okay.
No, that's okay. The more I become grounded in my spirituality and my gifts, I become much more accepting of my body and my form, because I know that this is just a shell and a vessel. I get to imbibe in this blip of time, but my soul is so bright that I just need to give it the space to shine, right?
Yes.
So it can't shine if it's clouded with insecurities and with, self-hatred. In terms of my kind of facial structure and the aging of that, as I mentioned earlier, I don't choose to go down the path of injectables to make me look like I used to look like,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to more be in the place of this is who I am becoming and I am now. And what can I do to enhance that? And the gray hair, I have long gray hair.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say that it has really given me so much empowerment.
Yes.
I still dye my hair, but I dye my dark hair to match the gray now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a less of a constant process. I was always fighting the grays every 3 weeks, 4 weeks to hide them. And I was like, I don't want to hide anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to suck this time. I think that that's true for all things about me. I'm like, I don't want to hide anymore. I don't want to pretend anymore. I want to just be truly myself.
Yes. So I'm also in the not dyeing my hair club. And again, I reserve the right to change my mind at any time, but I have lots of, silver streaks and I think they look really cool. But I also understand other people have fun changing the color of their hair, and that's like a real pleasure for them. But to your point, yeah, I just don't want to be in a position of constantly having to fret that my age is showing and people will actually know that I'm in my 40s.
Right.
It's like, who the fuck cares? And even more than that, I'm really proud of everything I've accomplished in my life. And I couldn't have done that as a younger person, So to me, the silver hairs, I think they're witchy and magical and sparkly. And they also celebrate my actual experience, right? Which I'm really, really proud of. But again, anyone listening, you do you. This is just what Patty and I are choosing to do for ourselves at this moment in time.
Absolutely. Everyone is going to approach their beauty from an individual place. I think my only wish and hope is that those choices are made from a place of self-confidence and love for self, instead of feeling like if they don't do those things, they're not going to meet the standards of society.
Yes.
That's where things can get really warped and twisted, is when there's these societal expectations that everyone have this type of facial kind of features, or this kind of ass, or these kind of, body shapes.
It's so weird because when you go out in nature, it's like there are all different kinds of trees. There are all different kinds of flowers. Yeah. And yet it's weird that we think
one bird's not more beautiful than,
Right. To think that there's only one shape or type of skin is so limiting and it's unnatural, right?
Yep, exactly. And really just accepting yourself and coming from a place of true love for self, and your beauty will shine through, whatever your choices are.
On that note, we're going to take another quick break and we'll be right back.
This season of The Witch Wave is brought to you in part by Sphere and Sundry, an astro-magical atelier where you can get expertly elected materia magica, oils, incense, bath salts, salves, inks, beauty oils, and more, which have been ritually crafted during rare, powerful and benefic astrological configurations. And oh my word, I can tell you firsthand, this is the stuff. These formulas are chosen in accord with the strict requirements of the talismanic tradition outlined in the Picatrix and other ancient grimoires, meaning you can benefit from the power of amazing astrological transits even when the stars haven't aligned. These are incredible tools for witches who are looking to embrace the manifestations and results of their spell work, especially the Luna in Cancer series. And I myself have the Luna in Cancer incense, and it is a dream to use for any kind of lunar magic. Venus materia can be used for love, glamour, and attraction. Regulus for fame and recognition, Asclepius for healing and transformation, and Deneb al-Gedi for protection. I also used several of Sphere and Sundry's magical products on site in Greece during our group rituals, and they were so potent and so exquisite. I can't say enough good things about them. Since 2018, Sphere and Sundry have been a key driver in the rising tide of popularity and interest in astrological magic, amassing over 5,000 five-star reviews and field reports on their website. Most orders ship within 1 business day, and Sphere and Sundry is also well known for their incredible customer service, as they are their magical results, and I can attest to that as well. Learn more and get $10 off your first order at sphereandsundry.com using the code WitchWave. That's sphereandsundry.com, sphereandsundry.com, and use code WitchWave for $10 off your first order.
You've heard me wax ecstatic about Snowy Owl Tea before, and so you will understand why I am so excited to announce that I have teamed up with them to create an exclusive WitchWave herbal tea blend just for you. WitchWave tea combines some of my favorite botanicals, including nettles, rosehip, lavender, elderflower, and vanilla. And there's also some butterfly pea flower in there, which means that if you squeeze some lemon into your tea after it's brewed, the color will change, just like magic. And of course, it comes in Snowy Owl's signature shiny holographic packaging with a brand new black cat and purple moon label, all of which makes me swoon. This WitchWave tea blend from me and Snowy Owl is now available in the WitchWave shop while supplies last. So head on over to witchwavepodcast.com/shop to order yours now. It's currently the only place where you can buy this tea blend. But don't forget to also check out Snowy Owl Tea's other delicious tea blends over on their website, snowyowltea.com, and you'll see why I fell in love with their handcrafted, scrumptious, full-leaf tea and blossom blends in the first place. Some of my favorites of theirs include Second Breakfast, which is a blend of lemon, poppy seed, and oat, and 11th Hour Black Tea, which has vanilla and cardamom. And best of all, Snowy Owl is offering 10% off any teas ordered from their site using code POTION. So head over to snowyowltea.com and use code POTION for 10% off their house blends. And if you want our new, exclusive, delicious, color-changing WitchWave herbal tea blend, you can order that now over at witchwavepodcast.com/shop.
Hi, Witch Wavers. I have exciting news. At long last, we have some new Witch Wave merch available for you now through TeePublic. We decided to go with TeePublic for our new Witch Wave merch because it is a print-on-demand site, which means you can get different variations of the Witch Wave logo printed on t-shirts, mugs, totes, stickers, magnets, notebooks. Oh my gods, the sky's the limit. And the shirts come in different styles and fabrics and colors and are available in sizes small through 5XL, so you can order whatever you'll feel you're most magical in. So head on over to witchwavepodcast.com/shop. Welcome back to the Witch Wave. Today I'm speaking with Pati Dubroff. So Pati, you recently came off of a wild press tour that you have been doing a lot of the glamour magic for, and that is in support of Margot Robbie and the Barbie movie. I know people have all different kinds of feelings about the Barbie movie. I fucking loved it. I thought it was brilliant, and we can analyze it all day, but I'm curious what that experience was like for you as the person providing so much of the glamour magic to Margot on that tour.
It was magical, that tour. I have a couple things to tell you about Barbie and the pinkness of it all. One thing I noticed while we were out and about on the tour, I've done many other press tours for many other films with Margot, with other clients. And depending on the vibe of the movie can depend on the vibe of the audiences that come out for, whether it's the premiere or screenings or fan events, whatever. You know, let's just say I've been on a Suicide Squad press tour.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of kind of that vibe. It's a little darker and whatever.
Yep.
And the energy might feel a little spookier or, you know, more not dangerous, but that vibe.
Sure.
Barbie was all about pink, and pink, when you start to kind of pay attention to the energetics of color, and that's a whole other thing we could talk about, is color magic.
Yes.
How you can use color to manifest connection to planets and elementals and energies and whatever. But pink was the color of, that was everywhere. And pink is the color of the heart, and pink is the color of joy. Pink is the color of love. And I truly felt that in these large crowds of people, sometimes there would be, I think there was one event where there was 20,000 people or 16,000 people. It was pulsing with love and joy and pinkness. It was really magic. And it was something that we discussed internally about, how the power of these kind of being amongst all of these people with the right intention can really help manifest for the greater good. I don't want to go too much further into that, but let's just say that intentional kind of presence can really do a lot of magic. And one other thing that happened after the press tour finished, and it sadly finished a little bit abruptly because of a actor strike, I was sitting in front of my altar and reflecting on where I had just been, traveling the world and whatever. And I had a really distinct memory of being a little girl in front of, do you remember those Barbie heads
with the
that you could
kind of
style
the
their hair?
Yes, of
Yeah,
course.
you could style its hair, and you had some weird little crayons that you could like put makeup on her.
Yes.
I, of course, had one of those, and I loved her, and I spent a lot of time with her. And I remember sitting in front of her, wishing that I could do this when I grow up. And then I remembered that I had literally just been with Barbie in the human form, promoting her and her kind of beauty and essence all around the world. And there it was. I was doing that as a grown-up, and I manifested it. And I saw that loop of a timeline and the ability to manifest our dreams if they come from a place of, pure intention. And it felt magical. And I was sitting in front of my altar when all of this happened. It was really one of the most incredible remembrances. Thank you, Goddess Barbie.
Yes.
Goddess Barbie is on my altar. Yep.
I love that. I love those moments of, it almost feels like kind of time travel in a way, or maybe all the times are happening at the same time and we're just kind of time jumping and getting on these threads of when we're young. And I think connecting and preserving our childlike wonder and love and those moments that just felt the most free and magical when we were young, if we can remember what it was that we were doing and incorporate those things into our present timeline, oh my goodness, the magic that we can make. And I love for you that you had the moment to like go back and be like, hey, me from the past, like this thing you're doing, you just wait and see what you're going to manifest. And I
Yeah.
do that all the time. I talk to my younger self. I talk to my crone self too sometimes.
Mhm.
Sometimes I feel like I'm getting messages from my crone self. You know, we're all talking to each other. And I think it's really powerful because I know that, you know, you and I are talking about aging, but we're also timeless. Like our souls are timeless, right? And so we can kind of bounce back and forth to all of these different stages in our lives as well at any moment. So I think that's so powerful. And I love that Barbie is kind of like a talisman for you.
Yeah, who knew? Who knew? She really is. She's a really important part of my story up to now.
Yeah.
I really appreciate remembering the early spark of why I wanted to do something, the artistic expression, the love and deep love of beauty, and not getting caught up in the kind of like, oh, I have to go to work now, or oh, I have to, schlep this makeup kit around. It's heavy and da da da. It's really like, no, go back to the spark of why am I doing this? Why am I doing this?
Mhm.
I am doing this because of the love of beauty. I am doing this because I absolutely love helping someone feel their most empowered, beautiful self. I'm so lucky that I get to call this my quote unquote job.
Yes. Oh, I love that, Patty. Something that keeps coming into my head to the point where I'm like, all right, I hear you, little voice. Like, let me just say this. What do you make of this idea that as we get older, we become more quote unquote invisible? I feel like I hear this all the time. It is not my experience, but what do you make of that kind of languaging around invisibility as we age? I mean, I think it's code for
Mm.
unfuckability, right? But what do you think of that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, the first thing that came to mind is like, I think that people perceive that because they're not as, sexually kind of, sexually attractive, whatever that means. I get it. When I was younger, maybe there would be more heads turned on the street by people I didn't want their attention from, but I don't want that now. So I feel
Mm,
really wonderful, like kind of cloaked more in this, like maybe bubble of kind of power and not
mhm.
invisibility, or I can choose when I want to be visible and
Yeah.
I can choose when I don't want to be paid attention to. Also, that said, is I think that women now have stepped into their power, no matter what their age is, have the ability to be as visible as they want.
Mhm.
Something that came to mind is like me needing to, and not needing to, needing, wanting, kind of it just flowing into being more present on social media, right? I was always the behind the scenes person. I didn't choose to, I wasn't in the front of the camera, I'm behind the scenes. The pandemic started to change that.
Mhm.
I, needed to continue to generate an income. And part of that was by putting myself on camera and displaying beauty products to make a living,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And displaying, things on myself and how to. And I realized that that was a challenge for sure, because it was a bit of a mind fuck, because I was spending so much time in the camera, on the camera, and then looking at myself and editing, and so much time looking at myself that I was starting to spin out on self doubt and insecurities and why am I doing this? And when I backed up a little bit, and honestly, when I let go of the editing part and let someone else take care of that, so I'm not spending as much time looking at myself, I realized that I was in a position to do a great service to others who are in the same bracket of age as
Mhm.
me
Mhm.
and help show them some tools to enhance themselves from this place that we are now.
Yes.
It's an incredible tool, and it's made me so much more visible in my mid 50s, more
Mhm.
visible in certain ways. And I'm here for it. Thank you.
Fuck
Thank you, social
yes.
media. Thank you, Instagram.
See, I love hearing that too.
And we met each other through Instagram.
Exactly.
Thank you, Instagram.
Exactly. I get this reminder all the time, and I give this reminder all the time, and you just did it again. So let me just underscore that hooray, like we want to look good and feel good. And there is an amount of like the outward gaze when we're doing that, right? But actually, what you're saying is by making yourself more visible, you're actually being of service to other people. You're being
Absolutely.
of service to spirit. You're helping other people by not shrinking, by not hiding. And that it's a weird kind of needle to thread, but I think about that all the time because I have these moments too where I'm like, oh my God, am I going to post another fucking picture of my fucking face? Like, really? Then I'm like, well, this is the tool I have, and this is how I can reach people. And hopefully, this means that I am using my gifts and honoring spirit by giving the messages that I'm here to give and doing the work I'm here to do. And so, if part of that means that people can find me and see me, okay, it's not just about us. It's not just about us wanting to like get praise. We're here to be of service to spirit and to other people. So I love that, Patti.
Absolutely. And service is such an important practice. And again, something that I learned spending time living in an ashram, the importance of service. And that, service can look like anything. It's a perspective. And also taking the ego out. One more thing about like being not invisible is you got to really like check the ego in that, putting yourself out there. Why are you doing this? Are you doing this because you just want to feed your ego? Or are you doing this as an act of service?
Right. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Now, speaking of an act of service, Patti, in speaking privately and getting to know you, you're also doing this beautiful act of service with a space that's very special in LA. Now, I know it's a private space, but I would love to give you an opportunity to talk about this space that you are helping to preserve, that you are helping to keep the sacredness of, because it feels like that's a real calling and a real extension of your beauty magic too.
A year ago, a incredible space fell into my lap as a alternate home. And it is a historical place. It's the Healing Dome. It was called the Esoteric Room for the Theosophical Society when they built their utopian community in 1912. And it is a magical portal. And I am so blessed that I've gotten to help renovate and restore this space. And then also keeping the energy alive that is so magic in there. And these buildings are really, really special. They're the first buildings in the Hollywood Hills. And the Theosophists searched for 6 years. They were dousing land for 6 years to find the most charged spot to create this utopian community. They landed there in 1912 and they stayed there for about a dozen years before moving on to Ojai. And then this space was Hollywood Babylon, really, like wild Hollywood Babylon. The space that I inhabit is a dome, and it's a sacred geometry, sacred architecture, perfectly aligned, charged healing dome.
Well, I'm so moved by that. And I love for you too, Patti. And I know it's a longer story, and maybe we'll have you come back on a bonus episode and tell a longer version of it. But I know that you were really called to this space. I don't think you were necessarily looking for it, right? And the fact that you also, at this point in your life, know to trust your instincts, to, as I always say, follow the trail of cosmic breadcrumbs and take on this whole other act of service and this whole other offering of beauty in your life is really remarkable. So I'm in awe of that.
Thank you. And I absolutely love sharing the space with a wonderful sacred circle of those who understand the sacredness of it. It's been really wonderful.
Gorgeous. So are you now comfortable with the word witch? I mean, you said that you are coming out of the broom closet. I'm curious as to your relationship with that word.
I am very comfortable here and now with taking on that word for myself. And I wasn't prior. I didn't know, or I forgot. And it took a witch to put a mirror in front of my face, literally, and say, hey, babe, you got this. Like,
Yes.
look in the mirror. That was Corbin Chamberlain.
I know Corbin a little bit.
He is
Magical
a magical,
person.
magical, beautiful human and has been such a great teacher. And then I started to realize, wait a minute, all these practices that I've been doing for decades, literally, it's all magic. It just
Yes.
didn't have that name. And we weren't calling ourselves witches, but it's herbs and crystals and kind of deep self-reflection and shape-shifting. And then it also was about kind of seeing my daughter step into her witchy ways and saying like, oh, wait, I used to do that. Or wait, that's my book. Those are my tarot cards I bought 30 years ago that I forgot to touch. Like, wait a minute. And seeing her develop and be so grounded in that. And then it made me think, oh, wait a minute, I just got a little derailed because of motherhood and career and busyness and, distractions, that I forgot to kind of, again, turn the mirror on myself and see that this is all within me and this is all who I really am. And, some of the things that witchcraft mean to me, it's like being in my power, being connected to the earth, being really connected to others, the deep connection to the spirit and the spirit world, understanding of deeper truths. All of those things are witchcraft. And really, that's the same thing as spirituality to me. So it's one and the same. And the stigma, I remember the fires from before. I don't know how, I just remember the fires from before, past life fire. And I think that those fires were really like keeping me afraid of stepping into the here and now. And now I'm really working with the fire to be a tool to not be afraid of, to help me get closer to myself. Fire is an element that, is not one to be feared. And I think as witches, the fear of fire can really be a deterrent from remembering who we truly are and what we need to do in this lifetime.
Well, you are helping us all connect to our inner fire and glow from within. So it's a really beautiful kind of inversion and a really beautiful transmutation of that fear into magic and into an offering to empower and illuminate other people. And that's what you do, Pati. In our last moments together, first of all, is there anything that you want to speak into reality? Is there anything you'd like to manifest? I mean, you and I have talked off mic about this. I so clearly have a vision of you integrating your magic and your makeup in much more bold ways, if that's the direction you choose to take things. But what do you want to speak into reality for yourself?
Thank you for that question. I realize that as a makeup artist, it's a very one-on-one situation. And so I want to broaden that, and I want to help uplift many, many, many more people into that feeling of kind of self-empowerment and clarity around like connecting to their beauty. Also, I want people to like approach the shadow side of their thoughts and insecurities and help them clear that away. And I think that the best way that that will manifest is through maybe books, maybe public speaking, maybe more podcasting. I'm really open.
TV show, Pati. Empire, Pati.
TV show. Oh my God.
Sorry, I'm getting carried away. These are your intentions, not mine.
I see it too. And I'm really here for it. I'm ready for it. I really, really want the world to feel so deeply empowered in their own innate beauty and to help the world break through blockages that are in the way. And so that's my goal. And whatever tools to take me to get there, so be it. So it is.
Blessed be. I have chills running up and down my arms.
Me too.
Oh my goodness. I'm so excited for you. I know, Pati, that people are going to want to know how to work with you, maybe even have one-on-one sessions with you if you still take clients on. What is the best way for people to connect with you?
The old Instagram at Pati Dubroff. And I think there's a website, but I don't think it works, which is really ironic because my husband's a web developer. It's really funny. I also have an agent,
Mhm.
which is Forward Artist, but that's a formal way. Yeah, I don't know. Instagram's a good way to kind of find me, and Forward Artists, maybe for more formal things
Yes, yes.
and bookings. Yeah, that's where I am.
Perfect. Perfect.
TikTok at Patti Dubroff. But maybe TikTok's not going to be around anymore.
You're braver than me, Patty. I still have my anxiety around TikTok, but that's a conversation for another time.
That's a whole other conversation.
Well, listen, I could not be more dazzled by you, more grateful for you. I just want to thank you again and again for coming into my life. I want to thank you for our session. I want to thank you for our conversation that started many moons ago and will hopefully continue for many, many, many more moons to come. Patti Dubroff, thank you so much for it all.
Thank you so much, Pam. This means so much to me because once again, this was my first entryway into reclaiming who I truly am as a witch. And to be invited to speak on this platform it feels like a milestone. I don't take this lightly. Thank you so much. And Pam, thank you for all that you do and all the service that you are sharing with others by educating, uplifting, teaching, inspiring. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
That's it for the show. Thank you again to Patti Dubroff for sharing her glorious glamour magic with me.
Do you have questions, feedback, need some witchly advice, or just want to share something magical that happened to you recently? Please do drop us an email or a voice memo at witchwavepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, and you just might make it on the Witchwire. The Witch Wave is a Phantasmophile production written and produced by me, Pam Grossman. This episode was recorded and edited by Josh Wilcox and/or Walter Nordquist and myself. Our theme music is the song Hand and I by Lycanthia. Our new Witch Wave logo was designed by Thunderwing, and special thanks, as always, go to Matt Freeman, Laura Antal, and Cece Pascal. You can check out information about this and other episodes on our website and now buy Witch Wave merch over at witchwavepodcast.com. Please subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, and do consider giving us lots and lots of sparkly stars and glowing reviews. It really, truly does make a difference and helps other people find the show. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at WitchWavePod, and you can check out my witch emoji for iPhone by going to witchemoji.com or downloading it in the App Store. My book, Waking the Witch, is available everywhere now, and the Witchcraft book I edited and co-authored for Tashin is as well, so thank you for checking those out too. And if you want more Witch Wave, or you would just like to support the show, please do join us over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/witchwave. Thank you so much for listening. Witches are the future. I'll catch you next time on The Witch Wave.